Starting here in 2018, NBC Sports will be awarding an annual trophy between the A's and Giants called the Bridge. Now, this is not just any ordinary piece of hardware. This trophy will be constructed from steel that used to be the old eastern span of the Bay Bridge. And before we tell you about the future and what we hope to accomplish starting today, here's a look back at the timeline which brings us to this very moment.
Now, before we unveil what the trophy will look like, Bruce, I'd like to start with you here and ask you about the idea of awarding a trophy for a regular season series like this. Not that common. Only a few teams do it. What do you think about it?
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. I think anytime you have a chance to win some hardware, that's a good thing. So, we'll both be battling for this. And, the fact it is a piece of the old Bay Bridge, that's pretty cool. So whoever came up with that, I tip my cap to them. It's going to be a neat thing, but it's going to be, added interest. I think a little bit more pressure on Bob and myself with this trophy being presented. But, that's a good thing in our game.
More scrutiny. 12th year you've managed in the Bay Bridge Series. Any specific games or specific moments stick out to you from this long history of this rivalry that you've been a part of as a manager?
I really, I think I look at one game. I really can't think of one that stands out, but one that Morris pitched in Oakland. He was kind of struggling at the time. He threw a shutout there, and he had quite a lot of pitches going into the ninth inning, but he would not let me take him out. And so for some reason, I remember that. We ended up trading him, but just threw a beautiful game that night.
Bob Melvin, I'd like to get to you on this as a Bay Area native and a guy that has connections on both sides, a player once for the Giants and now manager of the A's. What type of potential do you see for the fans to have something like this to call their own in a rivalry that is theirs?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's similar to the Axe, Cal and Stanford Axe, and that's a big deal. So this is going to be a big deal to our fans. And, the Bay Bridge is so symbolic of where we are and where they are, and reminds me a lot of traffic too coming across the Bay Bridge. So I think it's apropos that it's a piece of the bridge.
Crossing off my next question here about the traffic, but as for your experiences with that bridge, I'm sure you grew up crossing it many times. It has since been torn down, but just the fact that it's made of steel from that old span, does that bring back any potential memories for you besides traffic?
Well, you can't help but think of '89 when I think it was the Eastern Span had its issues. So, what a great time that was for the A's and the Giants organizations in the World Series, and then having to stop because of that. And I think it was symbolic that, the bridge was part of the issues there. So I have been across that bridge many times in my youth, and I think it's great that, we will take a piece of this and someone will get it at the end of the series.